Greetings, it is the 21st of December 2013 and it is 1:37 a.m. I'm sat here relaxed right now with I've got myself a drop of wine and just having a little casual perusal over the model charts. This is an update of the expected stormy conditions over the Christmas period. And there ain't nothing calm and relaxed about the charts showing up at the moment, let me tell you. I thought I'd concentrate on the GFS model first. It's quite nasty outside here right now, actually. It's been wind and rain for the past several hours or so. Yeah, what we're looking at here is the 6-hour chart for Saturday, the 21st of December. Well, actually, that's the current situation type chart. On the GFS model, deep area of low pressure out in the Atlantic. A run of strong southwesterly winds across the United Kingdom. Just run through the sequence here. 12-hour chart. Low pressure moves a bit east. There's the 18-hour chart. So low pressure up near Iceland up there at 955 millibars. And those are pretty strong winds circulating around it. The 24-hour chart, not a lot changes really. Kink in the isobars there across the UK. Maybe indicating some little feature running across, some little wave feature running across the country. The 30-hour chart. Yeah, that little kink feature does seem to have developed a new area of low pressure. The 36-hour chart doesn't show anything extraordinary. Run of westerly winds as far as the UK is concerned, and there's the 42-hour chart. Another wave-like feature. See the kink in the isobars here, tightening the isobars for Scotland. Some sort of feature running across here. 48-hour chart. Still looking very windy for parts of Scotland. Closely packed isobars up there. Less windy for southern England at this point. And so this is the chart for the 22nd of December. And we advance on now to the 54-hour chart. And here's a new low developing just out in the mid-Atlantic. Beginning to develop out here. And it doesn't look like much on that particular chart there, but this could become quite a newsworthy event for Monday. So you've got this low 980 millibars developing out here. I can't remember what chart was that again. 60-hour chart. No, the 54-hour chart. The 60-hour chart, it's deep into 960 millibars. Still to the west of the UK. The 66-hour chart, it's deep into 945 millibars. And at this, the isobars are tightening up. There's strong southwesterly winds coming in here. The 72-hour chart, it's deep into 935 millibars. Still to the west of the UK. The 78-hour chart, 930 millibars, still deepening. With a new low having developed to the west of that one. And at this point, there's some very strong winds circulating around that area of low pressure. I'll have a sip of wine here a second. I am drinking Colombard Chardonnay, made in South Africa. Wine. Okay. That's a pretty stormy looking chart there for the, that's a 78-hour chart. It's for Christmas Eve. Depicted there at 1 o'clock local time. Local time, that would be French time, of course. This is a French website. So EU time. But yeah, 930 millibars, that's not to be sniffed at, really. As far as Atlantic depressions are concerned, I mean, I've seen, if you take a look at this low to the left of this deep one out here, 970 millibars. Well, in the past, I've seen lows of 970 millibars affect the UK with like severe gales going around the southern flank. So goodness knows what's going to happen with a low down to 930 millibars, but at this particular point, I'm just thankful that the strongest of these winds are still occurring out to sea around the southern flank of this low pressure system. So remembering where I was, that was the 78-hour chart I was looking at. The 84-hour chart, they've still got the low at 930 millibars, moving in a bit closer to the UK at this point. So really tightly packed isobars now coming into parts of Northern Ireland. And you can't even see Scotland on that chart there. It seems to have been swallowed up with a big black hole. But Scotland's there somewhere. The 90-hour chart, the low is still... I mean, how likely is this? The low is going to bottom out at 930 millibars and then stay at 930 millibars for such a length of time. That chart there is for Christmas Eve at 1 p.m. So it's a few hours later from the 78-hour chart. And the low pressure is still at 930 millibars. And it's looking very dire indeed for the more northern parts of the UK, northwestern parts of the UK in particular, and the Western Isles of Scotland. The 96-hour chart, it's still at 930 minutes. This is this is 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and the low is still at 930 millibars. And it appears to be pulling away a bit to the north. So winds certainly across southern UK don't look too bad at this point. Still strong up north, going around the southern flank of that low pressure system. So the next chart is 102 hours, and at this point we've moved into Christmas Day. It's 1 a.m. local time, European time. And that low is still being depicted at 930 millibars, now moving up towards Iceland. It seems to be taking a similar trajectory to the low that recently occurred across the UK, that brought wind gusts to about just over 90 miles an hour to parts of Scotland. Seems to be taking a very similar trajectory to that one, actually. So it gradually moves north, away from the UK. But I can't believe it's going to stay at 930 millibars for that length of time. Also of note on this chart here, the 102-hour chart, little kink developing down here. I'll look at the 108-hour chart next. Okay, the low is finally beginning to fill. Not by much, though. 935 millibars. Still hanging around up there between Scotland and Iceland. And still strong blast of southwesterly winds occurring for Northern Ireland and northern parts of Scotland. So that's at 7 a.m. Christmas Day morning. The 114-hour chart, the low is filled up to 940 millibars. Still hanging around up there between Scotland and Iceland. This is 1 p.m. Christmas Day, and it's still depicting quite a strong blast of winds going across the north of the country. Winds much lighter further south, though, so getting a respite. The 120-hour chart still shows that low pressure hanging around up there, slowly filling 945 millibars. This is 7 p.m. Christmas Day, and winds are quite slack now across England and Wales. A new area of low pressure now beginning to show up on the chart across the Atlantic over here. That's worth keeping an eye on. So where was I? I was at 7 p.m. Christmas Day, right? What's that? The 120-hour chart. The 126-hour chart is 1 a.m. Boxing Day. And there's not much to say about that, really. The deep area of low pressure is still slowly filling between Scotland and Iceland. The 132-hour chart. That area of low pressure is still slowly filling between Scotland and Iceland. And the new area of low pressure further out west across the Atlantic appears to be deepening. It's now down to 970 millibars. Right? So you look at the 138-hour chart now. This is 1 p.m. Boxing Day. The old deep low still between Scotland and Iceland, still slowly filling. And the new area of low pressure across the Atlantic down to 965 millibars. The 144-hour chart. One area of low pressure to the north of Scotland, 960 millibars. And also 960 millibars for the storm moving across the Atlantic, developing system. And you can already see how closely packed the isobars are here. I forgot where I was now. Yeah, the 144-hour chart. The 150-hour chart. The low out in the Atlantic's at 950 millibars. Gradually approaching. The 156-hour chart, that low's now deepened to 940 millibars. And once again, very strong southwesterly winds are affecting the British Isles as it approaches. The 162-hour chart, we're now looking at 1 p.m. on the 27th of December. That low is at 940 millibars to the west of the UK. And closely packed ice, but it's a very big low pressure system. It's a very big wind field around it. Quite a dominant feature actually on that chart. See how far away from the centre those strong winds stretch. And then the 168-hour chart, this is for 7 p.m. on the 27th of December, still at 940 millibars. Very strong southwesterly winds across much of the UK. Going by that chart there. See how closely packed the isobars are. The 174-hour chart, that low still at 940 millibars, and is moving just to the north of Scotland. Tightly packed isobars going around it. So once again, it's going to be really tightly packed isobars. It's going to be a blast. The same areas getting affected again for the very strongest of the winds. It's going to be parts of Northern Ireland, and it's going to be parts of the central belt of Scotland on that chart there for the strongest of the winds. The 180-hour chart shows the low 940 millibars still, just passing to the north of Scotland. Still tightly packed isobars. The 186-hour chart, the low is starting to fill now, 945 millibars. Still closely packed there, still windy, blustery, windy conditions. And the 192-hour chart, this is as far out as the model goes. Saturday the 28th of December at 7 p.m. That low's filling and moving away from the British Isles, and I guess the winds will be slackening off somewhat. That's the GFS model. Now then, let's have a look at the ECM model here, which is more spaced out in terms of time frames, the current situation. I have another sip of wine here at this point. That's good. Now, see if any major differences show up between the ECM model and the GFS model. Current situation, 24 hours. Well, there's a bit of a difference already. The low up in the North Atlantic doesn't appear to be nowhere near as far east. And it's projected as just heading straight north, directly towards Iceland. The 48-hour chart, the low's meandering up near Iceland with quite a brisk run of westerly winds for the United Kingdom. You've got to skip ahead to the 72-hour chart at this point, so this is Monday the 23rd of December at 3 p.m. And another deep area of low pressure now being shown here, 945 millibars, just to the west of Scotland. Very strong winds circulating around that one. Another area of low pressure to the left. 96-hour chart. That low this is Christmas Eve. 1 p.m. 935 millibars, just to the north of Scotland. Those are very strong winds for parts of Scotland there on that chart. The 120-hour chart, that low has filled to 950 millibars. Winds have slackened across the UK. New deep area of low pressure developing across the Atlantic. The 144-hour chart, that developing area of low pressure is now here, 955 millibars. The 168-hour chart is the next progression on from that. Shows the low at 955 millibars, quite a sort of elongated centre to it. Very strong winds circulating around it. The 192-hour chart, that low has filled somewhat. The 216-hour chart, new storm developing across the other side of the Atlantic. The 240-hour chart shows that. Quite a spell of weather for the UK if that verifies. What's next? Next is the UK MO. The 06-hour chart, 955 millibar low to the southwest of Iceland out there. Quite a run of strong southwesterly winds across the UK. The 12-hour chart, I'll take another sip of wine. The low still out there. Quite far away from the UK. The 18-hour chart. Sort of a broad area of low pressure moving up towards Iceland. The 24-hour chart, not a lot changes. The 30-hour chart, not a lot changes. The 36-hour chart, not a lot changes either. 42-hour chart. So this particular model run only goes out as far as 144 hours. This 48-hour chart. The low sort of meanders up near Iceland. Strong westerly winds for the northern half of the UK. This sort of, you look for this area down, this will be the new area of low pressure developing down here. So that's the 48-hour chart. The 60-hour chart now, the new low has developed here. 980 millibars at the time. So what was that, the 60-hour chart? So I advanced forward to the 72-hour chart. That low has suddenly deepened to 955 millibars as it approaches the UK. And these are very strong southwesterly winds developing. So there you go, developing area of low pressure, it deepens quickly. 96-hour chart, it's down to 945 millibars and is to the north of Scotland. Some kind of secondary feature appears to be developing out here too. The 120-hour chart, that low is well north of Scotland at this point. This is Christmas Day at 1 p.m. Now look at England and Wales, not an isobar to be seen. Light winds. If this chart verifies, still a breeze, of course, for Scotland up north, but for a large part of England and Wales, light winds being projected there. In between weather systems. You can see more trouble brewing though out here. Already a very deep area of low pressure across the other side of the Atlantic. And the 144-hour chart shows that progressing eastwards down to 955 millibars. And that's the chart for Boxing Day on the 1 p.m. on Boxing Day. And what happens beyond that could be very serious indeed, but this chart, this particular model only goes out to 144 hours, but some of the other model ones are projecting a very deep area of low pressure, coming in somewhere around about late on the 27th and through the 28th of December, so you've got to watch out for that one. This is a very nice drop of wine here. Nice leisurely look at the models. I'm going to go to the Japanese one now, the JMA model. 6-hour chart. The models are showing pretty much similar things. There are minute. There are some differences in them, but the JMA model is projecting the area of low pressure going up to Iceland, like many of the other models have. 30 hours, 36 hours, 42 hours, 48 hours. There's the new area of low pressure developing out here. This is on the 22nd of December at 7 p.m. 54 hours, new area of low pressure now developed in the mid-Atlantic. 60 hours, it's down to 965 millibars as it approaches. 66 hours, it's 960 millibars. 72 hours, it's 945 millibars. 78 hours, it's 935 millibars. And in 84 hours, it's still at 935 millibars. And then progressing into the long range now, the 96-hour chart. That load's beginning to fill again. What worries me on this particular chart is the kink developing down here, a secondary feature developing, which could run along the southern flank of this. 108. The 108-hour chart actually shows that this is developing into a new area of low pressure, 975 millibars. And the 120-hour chart doesn't show it as a deep feature, but yes, it's a secondary feature with a new area of low pressure across the Atlantic. 132-hour chart that develops down to 960 millibars. 144-hour chart, it's yet another area of deep low pressure in the Atlantic. It's just a train of them, one after the other, really. At 955 millibars. 156-hour chart, 955 millibars. Once again, strong winds affecting the UK. 168-hour chart, that's at 960 millibars. Tightly packed isobars, strong winds again, maybe lighter winds up near the centre of the low across northern Scotland. The 180-hour chart, that low begins to fill. New low across the Atlantic. The 192-hour chart, this low out here has now deepened, and the pattern continues. So that's the JMA model. Another drop of wine. The GME DWD model. The 0-hour chart, the 6-hour chart, the 12-hour chart, the 18 hours, the 24 hours, the 30 hours. That's a deep area of low pressure moving up towards Iceland on this model run. The 36-hour chart, the 42-hour chart, the 48-hour chart, the 54-hour chart, and here's this area of low pressure again, developing in the Atlantic. 60-hour chart, it's deepened to 965 millibars. The 66-hour chart, it's deepened some more. 72-hour chart, it's down to, 940 millibars, with very tightly packed isobars around it. Really, you don't want that one to vary. That's Monday. That's as far out as this particular model goes. Monday the 23rd of December at 1 p.m. That's very nasty stuff. Okay. I'm going to bring out the GEM model. I'm having a quick pause at this point as I have something to prepare. And I'm back. The GEM model. 6-hour chart. Pretty similar to the other ones by the looks of it. Deep area of low pressure to the south of Iceland, gradually moving towards Iceland. A little kinky in the isobars here, some sort of feature running across the UK there. 24-hour chart, 30-hour chart, 36-hour chart, 42-hour chart, 48-hour chart, the 54-hour chart. Here's the new low coming. 60-hour chart, there it is. 970 millibars, developing area of low pressure. Monday 1 AM local time, that is. Advancing onto the 66-hour chart, that low has deepened to 950 millibars. 72-hour chart. Now what happens here as we advance through here? 72, 78, 84, 90. What the hell? I think this requires... I mean, this looks like end of the world type stuff. We need some cataclysmic music to go with this. It is like a black portal has opened to another dimension. The actual reality of the situation is that there's a much more sober explanation for this, actually. It's the GEM model cannot model low pressure below 950 millibars. Hence you get the big black void. This is an awesome video, by the way. It's on YouTube. It's had over 7 million views already, and it's one of my favourite videos, actually. It's wonderfully put together, and the music is really spectacular stuff. Okay, so back to the models. The GEM model. Let me make sure I can be heard over the top of the music. That video, by the way, I'll link to it in the description down below. The big black void swallows up a large part of the Atlantic. Well, needless to say, deep area of low pressure. So there it comes, big black hole. Deep area of low pressure. That is for this coming Monday. Then things slacken off a bit then for Christmas Day. The low fill moves away from the UK. And what happens beyond that? Well, this model differs a bit from the other. This is the GEM, this is the Canadian model. The low pressure that comes in after this is on a more southerly track and not as deep. So you can see that there. It does eventually deepen down. It crosses Ireland, 965 millibars. It's a low of 965 millibars that goes across the centre of the UK, with strong winds developing around its southern flank. Just for a change, southern England gets the worst of it on that chart, and then it moves across into Europe. So those very strong winds will then be carried across the coasts of Belgium, Holland, Germany, heading towards Denmark. 192-hour chart. So this model does differentiate from the others. and it goes all the way out to 240 hours, which is the 30th of December. Okay. I'll have another sip of wine here. The Nav Gem model. Run through the sequence. It all looks pretty familiar at this point. So I've looked at quite a lot of model runs right now, all depicting this area of low pressure developing in the mid-Atlantic by around about Monday and progressing towards the UK. Deepens to 950 millibars. And this is well, it's the Nav Gem, so it's the GEM model again. You can't model areas of low pressure below 950 millibars, so you get the big black void again. And what happens beyond that? Just a shallow low runs into France on this model run. Another area of low pressure comes across the Atlantic later on. And that looks like another major one there, the 27th of December, 950 millibars. Big black void develops again, which means can't model pressures below 950 millibars. But that's another major North Atlantic winter storm system there being depicted. What shall I look at right now? I think I want to look at every single one of these. CMA model. Okay, this one goes in quite big steps and is different from the other models. At 48 hours, this has got another area of low pressure depicted in the North Sea here. And at 72 hours, this area of low pressure in the Atlantic. At 96 hours, it's at 940 millibars, approaching the northwest of the UK. 120 hours, the 144 hour chart, the 168 hour chart, the 192 hour chart. So that's got an area of low pressure heading in towards Portugal and Spain. Down south, the 216 hour chart, and the 240 hour chart. And maybe I'll take a look at one more. Oh, CFS Daily. Model run. All looks quite familiar there. That chart there, the timeline's a bit different on this one. That chart there is for Christmas Eve at midnight. The deep area of low pressure is to the west of Scotland on that one. 940 millibars. Christmas Day things quieten down quite a bit. Then the next area of low pressure comes across the Atlantic and deepens just to the west of Ireland, down to 950 millibars on the 27th of December at noon. And then that goes down to 945 millibars. And that looks like a pretty serious situation for the United Kingdom, if that one verifies, for the 27th of December at 6 PM. Very deep area of low pressure and some very strong winds circulating around it. Okay, so just return to most people consider what the three main models to be GFS, the ECM and the UKMO. But whichever model run you look at really, it's a stormy spell coming up. The GFS is amazing in that it models this particular run here, this low, from this Monday's low we're talking about here. It deepens it down to 930 millibars at 78 hours, and then keeps it at 930 millibars for a very long period of time. Yeah. Very interesting spell of weather coming up for the UK. A lot of depressions to keep an eye on. Checking some of the weather boards earlier on today, some quite apocalyptic type stuff going on there. And there are people saying they've never seen charts like it for many a year. Storm after storm after storm with such deep low pressures being modelled for the Atlantic. I mean, there could be some records broken actually if some of these very deep areas of low pressure come to pass. But let's hope the models are overdoing these Atlantic lows quite a bit, because if they do verify as being shown at the moment, then parts of Northern Ireland and large parts of Scotland in particular are going to get battering after battering. And it's going to cause lots of disruption over the holiday period. You know, you're going to be talking about structural damage. The sort of lows being depicted here, this one for example, as it stands here right now, you know, that is like severe gale or storm force winds occurring on the southern flank of that low. Going to do a lot of damage, not to mention the copious amounts of rain that's going to come out of these systems. Here in southwest England, for example, the ground's already very saturated from the recent lows, areas of low pressure that we've had in recent days. So flooding is going to become a major problem, as well as the strength of these particular storms and the oceans, the wave heights. There's going to be some ginormous waves coming in off the Atlantic with these deep areas of low pressure as well. And well, stormy festive period coming up for the UK. There's not too much to hope for in terms of the white stuff, the snow, because a lot of these depressions are being modelled as sort of coming in. They come in sort of like towards western Scotland, and then they just seem to hit a block and then go straight north. If they were to continue to trundle east into the North Sea, then at least you get the pull down of the cold northerly winds on the flanks of these lows, which could offer some opportunity for the white stuff. But the way that these things are being modelled, where they just seem to stop, they hit northern Scotland and then they just stop and then they just go straight north. So the winds are always coming from that west-southwesterly direction as far as the UK is concerned. Not too much hope of the white stuff, as it stands at the moment anyway. The Atlantic's just far too active, too stormy. And the next storm system being modelled for around about the 27th, 28th of December, that also looks very worrying indeed as well. I'm going to take a similar looking track. So I think I better wrap this up. I've got nearly 40 minutes on the clock here. I should wrap this up. But batten down the hatches time, I think. Okay, cheers. See you in the next video.